Hello and welcome to Context. For today's episode, I will be going live on Insight Timer, which, if you're unfamiliar with Insight Timer, I talk about it a crap ton in my previous episodes of this podcast. But what it is a free meditation app, but there are also teachers on Insight Timer, and I am a teacher. And teachers have, some people have music, talks, meditations on their page, but they can also go live. Some people teach yoga, some people do oracle card readings, or teach about all different kinds of stuff. Some people do psychic medium readings on Insight Timer. But today on Insight Timer, my live that I'm gonna, it's a talk. I'm gonna record it kind of like a podcast episode, and I'm going to edit it and paste it into this podcast episode right after I film this and give you the context as to what I'm going to be talking about on my live on Insight Timer. So for the live, I'm calling it What is Channeling and How to Do It. And this is a very, I would say, spiritual thing. So if you're a spiritual person, if you're just starting to tap into spirituality and you want to kind of strengthen your spiritual gifts, as some might say, then this is definitely an episode that you would want to watch. And some of you who are listening now may have already been at the live on Insight Timer as well. So that's kind of not silly, but a little silly to me. It's very meta, I guess. But I have my journal right here, and to prepare for this live, I prepare for lives differently. Sometimes I really sit down and I will channel myself messages and meditations or things to say or things to share with the collective, or I will just not have any preparation and I will just start the live and allow whatever needs to be said and channeled through me live as I'm talking. But I do have some preparation questions, topics that I will be talking about in this talk. And so the first question is, what is channeling? And I'm going to go over different types of channeling, because you can channel free write messages. You can channel just by sitting and thinking. There's a lot of different types of channeling. And how do we do it? Because everybody channels differently. Everybody has access to their own intuition in a different way. Some people have similar ways, and some people it's completely unique and different. So everybody taps into their own intuition in order to channel messages, in order to channel whatever it is you're trying to channel differently. So I'm going to talk about that, as well as how you can start to look for confirmations, look for synchronicities in the messages, in the signs, in whatever it is that you're channeling. So that's the basis of what I have written down to talk about today in this live. And on Insight Timer, there is a feature that there's a live chat. So anybody who joins can ask questions, can comment, can share information. So I will be editing the episode, the live. I'm going to record it, the audio. So you're not going to see me, but I'm going to record the audio. Well, if you're listening on YouTube, you're not going to see me, because you can see me now if you're watching on YouTube. But if not, then you're just listening to my voice anyway. But some people will be asking questions. So I'm going to do my best to edit their names out, or I'm going to try to not say their names. I don't know, because I'm very engaged with my audience on Insight Timer. I like to acknowledge everybody and say their names, and, it's as if they're really there with me, even though it's through a screen. But I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that there's going to be a ton of questions that come up during this live. And there will also be a Reiki healing channeled during this live. So what that means is, if you consent, you can consent by saying yes in your head or out loud. You will receive Reiki as you listen to the rest of this episode. And what Reiki does, what it can do, is it can heal anything physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. What it does is it goes to where it needs to heal, and you can set an intention. So say right now you're having a really, really great day. You're like, I don't really have any intentions. You can always set the intention for the Reiki to heal past wounds, past traumas. You can send it for the future, that you have a great rest of your week to continue the energy of your great day. If you're not having a good day, you can set the intention for this Reiki to kind of calm you, relax you. Say you haven't been sleeping well, you can set the intention to help you get a good night's rest. Something like that. You can set more than one intention, but these are just some examples for you. So you will now hear me on Insight Timer recorded live on March 26th around like noon, 12 p.m. So I hope you enjoy. In this talk, we are going to be talking about what is channeling, how do we do it, and what are different ways that channeling can come up for us in our daily lives with synchronicities and signs that we see from Source and Spirit. What is channeling? Channeling can be seen as a lot of different things, but the definition that I will provide, channeling to me basically means that through your own vessel, like your body, your mind, I am able to, and you are able to, channel in messages, sounds, signs, beings, spirits, whatever you want to call it, divine, God, whatever definition you have, the universe. We as human beings, or I say for myself in my experience, we can channel through us. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is coming from us, more so that it is coming through us as a channel, as a conduit for messages, for synchronicities, for signs. And I as a human, you as a human, we have the capacity to channel in higher dimensional light, higher dimensional source. And the way that we connect to this source, the way that we connect to divine, is different for every single person. And I would say, in my experience, it's all based on your intuition. And so if you are somebody who has been working on your intuition, this is something that you know the vocabulary about, like this is not new information for you. You're like, yes, I understand, my intuition, there's the ego and the higher self and the inner child and all these things, the shadow self. If you're familiar with this language, then this will probably make a lot of sense to you. If you're not familiar with this language, that's okay. And that's why we're here to learn. That's what we're here to discuss. So I feel like right now, whoever is at the live, I'm going to post this later for people to listen to, but whoever's at this live, I feel like y'all are very intuitive people. You've kind of been seeing the signs. You kind of understand what channeling is. There are different ways to channel. Some people, they channel like using a notebook, free writing. You set an intention for what it is you want to channel. So that's the thing too, is when we are channeling, when we are accessing divine source, spirit, it's important that we work with intention. Because when you set an intention and you ask the universe, when you ask divine, ask source for your intention, if it's clear, you are more likely to see the results that you want, if that makes sense. And if this is something that you are just tapping into for the first time, please know that it takes a lot of patience, a lot of trust, and a lot of time to develop these gifts, to be able to channel, to be able to access divine, to be able to get a clear message. These are things that maybe for some of you will come super, super easily. For others, it might take years. And when I say years, I mean years to develop it to the extent that you see yourself right now wanting to channel. Like when I first started channeling messages and getting signs from source and from spirit, I already was like, I want to talk to my spirit guides. I want to hear them. I want to have a conversation with them. I just want to be like, hey, what's up? And then them talk to me right away. It was not like that for a long, long time. And I've worked for a couple years. And now I am getting into this space that if I get it grounded, or when I get grounded, I can call in my guides and I will know that they are there with me and I will understand what it is that they are channeling to me. but that takes work. And it's not easy work for everybody. For some people, it will come very naturally. So don't be discouraged, but know that if you are facing this roadblock, if you feel like there is a block and you're unable to access source in the way that you want to, that it's okay and that it's normal and that it takes time. And so don't give up. Keep trusting and keep practicing, because this is a practice. At the end of the day, channeling work, connecting to source, this is a practice. It is a gift, something that we are all born with the ability to do. And as we grow up, depending on, where you're from, the culture around you, some people, they grow up and their family is very spiritual and they are able to do this from a young age and they work on these gifts throughout their entire childhood, their entire life. Others, we are just now, quote unquote, waking up, connecting to our divine intuition. The divine feminine is coming in. We are accessing these gifts. Maybe we've never even considered doing channeling work. Maybe we've never even considered connecting with source, connecting with spirit. But now, well, maybe I could do that. You can. So if you're thinking, oh, maybe I could do that, you definitely can. So let's backtrack. In order to do channeling work, it is very important to be grounded and centered. And if you don't already have a practice in place, I have some meditations here on Insight Timer, like a quick 5-minute grounding meditation. You can do box breathing, which, you inhale for, 4, 6, 10 seconds. You hold it for 6 or 10 seconds. You exhale for 6 or 10 seconds. And then you have a moment of pause for 6, 10 seconds before you inhale again. And I say 4, 6, or 10, depending on how much breathwork experience you have. I find for me that 4 seconds, sometimes it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. But for others, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. And you actually get that full inhale in 4 seconds. So make sure that you are just taking a complete inhale, holding it, and then exhaling. And the box breath, that's what it's called. This can be a very grounding breathing technique. For some, for others, it doesn't work. And they're like, okay, I'm not feeling grounded. I'm just breathing. You know what I mean? So everybody's tactics, everybody's ways to get grounded and centered look differently. For some of us, that's really sitting in a quiet space and meditation. For others, that's singing at the top of your lungs, dancing around the room, going on a walk, jumping around. Whatever it is you need to do to get grounded and centered, do that before you attempt to start doing channeling work. First and foremost, getting grounded, getting centered, and trusting that you are meant to experience whatever it is you experience when you attempt to channel, especially if it's your first time. You might end up sitting there and get nothing the first time, and that's okay, and that's, I would say, pretty normal. But others, some of us may have been working on our spiritual gifts without even realizing it through this lifetime. And so there's a lot of different ways to channel. Some people, as I mentioned before, channel best through free writing and taking their pen to paper and just writing and letting whatever come through. And you might be surprised at what comes through. Some people channel that through talking and speaking aloud. You might ask your ego to step aside, allow your higher self to come through, and you just start asking questions to yourself, saying things out loud to yourself, and you might be surprised at what you say. And some people are channeling light, higher dimensional beings, healing energy. Like when I'm channeling Reiki, as I am right now to all of you, I set the intention to be a conduit, to be this channel, to send it out to all of you. So not only can people channel spirits and messages, but we can also channel this higher dimensional light to heal and raise our frequency and raise our vibration. Some people channel songs, music. We might get some channeled messages in the form, if you've ever had like a song stuck in your head and you're like, why is this song stuck in my head right now? Write it down. See if that song comes back in any sort of significance over the next month or so. And that's the thing, is when we channel, you might channel something that makes absolutely no sense to you in the here and the now. But when you come back to it in a couple months from now, in a year from now, it might make perfect sense. So I like to suggest that you keep it some sort of journal or notebook or diary or just papers that you understand are messages and things that you have channeled so that you can go back to it, because not everybody is going to sit down and channel a message that resonates for them right then and right now. Maybe you'll get there, but as we begin, it might be more difficult to do that. And the way that we access our intuition is different for everybody. So some people like to describe it as the different clairs. We have clairvoyance, clear seeing, claircognizance, clear knowing, clear sentience, clear feeling or understanding. What else? There's a bunch of different clairs, and I'm blanking right now on all of them. But those are some basic ones that some people either have really strongly or they have to develop. Like for me, my claircognizance and my clairsentience are my two strongest. So when I am channeling, I don't necessarily like hear, like clairaudience, clear hearing. I don't necessarily hear messages, more so than I know and I understand them. And some people get images, they have clear seeing, maybe they'll see the words. Everybody has a different way to access their intuition. So some people see, feel, imagine, sense, know. Some people even smell. You might channel a certain smell or environment around you through like your nose. I forget the name of that, Claire, but it is a thing. And so along with being centered and grounded, this next step I was called to say to all of you, but I will say that in the past, I have not always adhered to this by creating your space, making it feel sacred and beautiful and divine to you. So, really having a lovely space that you are in can be really, really helpful when you feel safe. If you go outside to do some channeling work and you're feeling unsafe, maybe if you're in public, maybe try to, really get grounded and feel safe in your surroundings before attempting to channel. Because if you are feeling unsafe in your body, you are more likely to doubt what comes through, as well as block the frequency of the light to come through. Because when we are in this anxious fear, we subconsciously or unconsciously put up a wall that kind of blocks spirit to come through. And so when we operate from this frequency of love, from this frequency of feeling safe, you are more likely to be able to become that conduit and channel of this light. Make sure that you're breathing. Make sure that you're drinking water. So once you're grounded, once you're centered, once you've created, and I would suggest creating a divine space, making your space feel beautiful and lovely, and then getting grounded in it. Like you can get grounded before you make your space lovely, but also take a re-grounding breath. And know that you don't necessarily have to be alone to do this sort of channeling work, but if you are doing this for the first time, it might be helpful just to be alone, just so that there's no judgment. I feel like when it comes to doing spiritual work, for those of us who did not grow up around a very supportive and like spiritual family, working within this like magical light, because to me I see this as magic. Like when we are doing channeling work, when we are connecting with source, it's magical to me. And some people are afraid of the magic because they grew up saying magic isn't real. We can't do that. We don't have special powers. No, 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 no. We can't just know things. We can't channel things. That's not true. That's wizardry. That's witchcraft, Some people, it's really hard for them to unlock that feeling of being safe and being grounded and being open to receiving messages, to receiving a connection to their spirit team, to their spirit guides, to their ancestors, whoever it is you want to be connecting with, even if it's your higher self, even if it's your inner child. So, as I mentioned, we can channel light and energy healing. We can channel messages. You can channel synchronicities, light, wisdom, songs and music, protection, answers. Like if you're feeling really stuck on something and you're like, I don't know what to do, like I don't feel comfortable talking to my friends about this, or maybe you did, and what you heard from your friends is not really good advice, and you're like, ugh, no one can really help me. All I have is myself. Yeah, that's true. You do have yourself. And not only do you have yourself, but you have unlimited access to your intuition and to your spirit team and to your divine sacred knowledge and wisdom from past lives, from centuries and centuries of lifetimes. And you may not have access to that right here, right now, but when you work on your intuition, when you work on this gift of channeling, you will soon be able to connect to this wisdom and knowledge and this inner knowing and trust it. And that's a really, really big thing. So, trust is huge. You have to trust yourself. And learning to trust yourself, especially for those of us who grew up facing trauma, facing obstacles within the structure that is our society, for those of us who have been shot down by our parents, by our family, by our friends, by our coworkers, by our peers, by teachers, by mentors, for those of us who have learned to not trust yourself, who have learned to doubt yourself, which is many of us, especially in this day and age, especially through capitalism and through the systems that are in place. If you're not a cisgender, heterosexual white man, chances are you faced a lot of trauma in this lifetime. And all of us who are alive right now, we have already faced collectively the last few years within this pandemic, we have faced a lot of trauma. So, that being said, trusting yourself and working on your intuition is really the first step in order to be able to do channeling work. But assuming that you have done that, moving forward, what can we do when we channel? What can we do to look for synchronicities and confirmations? So say you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my God, it's 3 a.m. What the heck? I want to go to bed. I would highly suggest, if you don't already have a notebook or a dream journal or something by your bed, to keep some sort of pen and paper or pencil or whatever, marker. It doesn't have to be pen and paper, but something to write something down on. You could totally use your phone. I personally, before I go to bed and in the middle of the night, I don't like to see a screen. Like for me, if I look at a screen before falling asleep, it's more difficult for me to sleep, and I also tend to have more I feel like I don't sleep as well, so I try to put my devices away. This is just me personally. I try to put my devices away before I sleep, and in the middle of the night, if I wake up, I try not to look at my phone to check the time or to write something down. So I like to have a pen and paper, and you can use like a clock, or I have a little like device that I can like ask it what the time is, and it'll tell me, so I don't have to like look at any bright lights. It's a very interesting thing. But say you wake up and I would encourage you to just sit with yourself and say, is there something, like you can take a deep breath and say, okay, spirit, or okay, divine, okay, universe, okay, higher self, whatever language you feel comfortable using. You can just say, okay, what is it that I need to know right now? And close your eyes, or don't even close your eyes, but just breathe and observe. Are you hearing anything? Are you sensing, seeing, trusting? Is there a song that comes into your mind? I say this because I have been channeling music. Like when I wake up in the middle of the night, if I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes I'll go to use the restroom, but like as I come back from the restroom, I'm like, okay, what is it that I need to be aware of? What is it that I need to know? And let me even I have my journal right now. Let me show you, like, just the other night. What did I channel? 2 nights ago, on March 24th at 3:50 a.m., I got the message, don't lose sight of what's important to you. Okay, I wrote that down. And then I got I'm Almost There from Princess and the Frog. I didn't write down the lyrics. Usually I'll write down the lyrics. Like in the past, I've got like Don't Stop Believin', that song from Journey by Journey. Don't Stop Believing, Hold On to That Feeling, like just that over and over. I've written that down. Like, this is just an example. Like, I'm Almost There, Princess and the Frog. So something that has been coming up for me since, and this is something I'm noticing right now, a synchronicity that I am just now realizing from reading what I wrote down 2 days ago. I have been seeing frogs today, yesterday. So that's interesting. This is a synchronicity. And this is, I don't necessarily know what that synchronicity means just yet, but it is something I am aware of and I am observing, and is something I am channeling. And that's what I wanted to mention, that we might, and most likely we will, see and face delays in confirmations, in seeing synchronicities of what it is we have channeled. So I have messages from years ago that I read now and I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. This makes so much sense right here, right now, years after I've written this down. There's been a couple months where, I'll write down the same message and I'm like, okay, like be still, have compassion, have patience. Okay, great. And then as I move forward over the next couple of months, I start realizing, this is why I was channeling this for myself, to have stillness, to be patient as situations come up in my life. So as we do channeling work, some of the messages, some of the beings that we channel, what we will understand from them won't necessarily make sense as you channel it, but it will make sense in the future. And so it can be hard to trust and to have patience, but it is so, so important in this kind of work to trust and to have patience as we channel. And building that trust with yourself is really the key. And some people say that when you doubt your intuition, that is a confirmation. So say you're sitting in meditation or you're trying to do this channeling work and you get a sense of a message and you write it down and you're like, no, I just made that up. That was me. I made that up. You're doubting yourself. You're doubting your abilities. And in your doubt, you can have that confirmation that you are on the right track, that you have actually just channeled some information for yourself. And so what? Say you channel something like, set an intention and move forward with grace. And you're like, yeah, I just told myself to do that. Okay. So if you told yourself to do that, what an amazing thing to tell yourself. And you can trust that as you start to write things down, whether or not you feel that you are consciously creating these messages, whether or not you feel like you've directly channeled it from source, it doesn't really matter. It's all up to interpretation of how serious this channeling work can be. It doesn't have to be that deep. You can just write down little messages for yourself that resonate with you, even if you don't feel like you are channeling it. It's all still channeling work. I hope that makes sense. Lynn says, I remember as a small child being so aware of spirits, but my mother telling me there was no such thing. I learned to shut it down. Yes. Just like you just said, we have so many parents and friends who told us that they're to not believe in this magic, to not believe in our gifts. And now is the time. We have literally just shifted. Pluto has shifted over. The divine feminine is awakening. Our divine gifts are awakening. And when I say divine feminine, it's not in relation to gender and stuff, which some of us know gender is kind of a societal structure. It's not necessarily fact, I guess. Gender is kind of made up, personally, I would think. So divine feminine is not necessarily talking about women or girly stuff. Feminine, it's just that energy of this wisdom, of this magic, being able to tap into that flow, being able to tap into your intuition, your knowing, your nurturing. That is this divine feminine energy that we have stepped into. And we have been in this divine masculine of structure, of, needing to really make sure everything is in place and not really allowing ourselves to step outside of this societal structure through this divine masculine energy. Now we are in this divine feminine We are seeing these structures fall. We are allowing things to change and to shift into love. And as we learn to shift into love, we can learn how to channel, we can learn how to connect to our gifts. And this is the time to do it. What I just shared now, I hope that gives a sense into how we can channel. And I know there's so many different ways. So honestly, it comes down to you and what you feel called to do. If you are being called to do channeling work, we can channel messages using oracle cards, tarot cards. We can channel messages through listening to music, watching movies. Something might come out and jump out to you. And you might see it as a sign, you might see it as a message, and then later you might channel that same message out. And seeing the synchronicity and seeing these confirmations around you, for me, is really what allows me to dive into this magic. And like seeing different numbers, you can channel numbers, and channeling doesn't just have to be words. It doesn't have to be like human language. It can also be tunes. It can also be images. It can be animals. It doesn't just have to be spoken word. It doesn't just have to be written out messages. It can be whatever it means to you. Channeling can be sitting in meditation, seeing different lights in your mind's eye, or imagining the feeling of these lights coming through. Can be channeling this protection of light to cleanse your energy space, to hold your energy in a sacred protection. It doesn't just have to be messages. But I feel here on Insight Timer, a lot of us, we like to hear channeled messages. We come on here for oracle card readings. We like to see the synchronicities. And so that's why this conversation was really catered to getting messages through song, getting messages through spoken word. But channeling can really be anything that you make it to be. There is no right way to channel. There is no wrong way to channel. There just is. And channeling is up to interpretation. Some people claim that channeling is just when you're calling in a past loved one, when you're calling in your ancestors or your guides. Some people say channeling is just being a conduit for this light. There's different definitions for different people. But it can be whatever you want it to be, really. If you are listening to this recording, whether it's on my podcast, whether it's here on Insight Timer, know that for the rest of the live, we are going to practice doing some channeling work. So if that's something that you are interested in, make sure that you are following me on Insight Timer and come to my live so that you are able to get this practice in, because this is not something I'm going to put in the recording as I upload this talk. It's important to remember that when we are channeling, when we are developing our gifts, that it may not come to you in the way that you think it might. So it's important to be open to seeing and learning from different perspectives and really having an open mind into what information you might receive. So make sure that you are trusting yourself and that you know that you have access to these gifts. And some of us, we might actually have some spiritual blocks within our energy field, within our energy centers, that prevent us from accessing our intuition, that prevent us from channeling. So as you're listening to this right now, there is Reiki being sent, and Reiki can actually help with clearing these energetic blocks that prevent us from having access to channeling. And working on your intuition, working on these gifts, this is a practice. So the more you practice, the easier it gets, I would say. And the way that we channel can shift and change over time. So the way that you are channeling right now may not look like the way that you channel in a couple years from now. So give yourself grace and trust that you are meant to experience exactly what you are experiencing when and if you ever attempt to do some channeling work. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a better understanding of what channeling work can be for you, and that you work on your channeling gifts and know and remember to have patience and to trust in yourself and to trust that you will unlock your abilities exactly divinely when you need to. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.